Another set of good games. So draw 2, like I mentioned here. We're trying to decide who will represent Nova Scotia at the Briar in Kingston in March. Not too far of a trip, and hopefully the winner will get some family members and friends to head to Kingston and cheer them on and represent Nova Scotia. But for now, we are draw 2 of the round robin, and this morning we've got Sheet D featured for you here. You can flip on over to Sheet C as well. Sheet D is Kendall Thompson and Brent MacDougall, Halifax Curling Club and Mayflower Curling Club. The other feed, we've got Stuart Thompson and Andrew Gibson. And if you're following scores on nscurl.com, we'll round out the other 4 teams in the competition. Alan O'Leary playing Chad Stevens and Matthew Manuel playing Jamie Murphy. So on our sheet, last rock, we had a lot of draws pretty close to the button on the last one. Team MacDougall throwing the yellow stones. They have last rock here in the first. And the leads have started us off. Michael Brophy for Team Thompson and Kirk McDermott for Team MacDougall. Rounding out the Thompson lineup, Chris McRae at second, Bryce Everest at third, Kendall Thompson the skip. And Team MacDougall, Marty Gavin at second, Paul Dexter at third, and Brent MacDougall the skip.
So we're starting off with a pretty typical setup, I think. Corner guard and a rock in the house so far.
That's nice to see. I always lament when we have a blank first end, so I like to see the corner guard go up. These teams have played each other many, many times. Kendall actually used to play with Brent years ago when he came out of juniors. They'd be quite familiar with the strategy. Both teams happy with lots of rocks in play. Usually we see them getting into it.
And of course with the 5-rock rule in play, there is some new strategy that often I think is more of a surprise than it used to be with the old 4-rock. I think that was a little more cookie cutter by comparison. There can be a few more surprises and a few bigger ends for sure.
Yeah, exactly. We see a lot more 3+ points go on the board this year with this 5-rock rule in play. And if you're not familiar with the 5-rock rule, Pam, that's guards can't be removed by the opponents until after the 5th rock is thrown. Not that much different from the 4-rock rule, just one extra rock, but it seems to make a huge difference.
It seems to, for sure. I think it certainly makes it easier to steal than it used to if you get some rocks in play.
Yeah, and it's funny too because the goal is to make it easier for the team with hammer, preserving that second corner guard, but you have to be careful. And that's why I think we're seeing, like you're saying, different strategy with it. Sometimes the teams will wait with hammer. They won't put the first corner guard up. They'll only put the second one up. And they'll keep playing the rings after the first one.
And I think the men compared to well, I can only really compare it to juniors, I suppose, but they have a lot better run back, bigger weights, that sort of thing, and it makes it a little easier to handle the many guards that can come in play.
Exactly. That's definitely true. You'll often see in junior play, you're so familiar running the junior program at Mayflower, lots of guards, and then they're unable to clear them.
First one in wins the end, yeah.
Yeah, you still have to be able to draw.
Yep, very true.
So Marty Gavin here, second stone. Team MacDougall. Chris McRae was able to just get a piece of the yellow stone in the top 12 foot and chip it out the side. So Marty's going to try and replace it here. Not seeing a ton of swing to this. It's starting to move now. Once it gets, it seems, into the guard zone, we're seeing the movement, but Marty's a little light on that one.
Both of the teams had practice, but of course it takes a while for the ends to, or the ice to settle in, I think.
It does, and I always laugh because teams throw that draw to the button. They throw for last rock, and they throw outside in. They aim at the edge of the 8 foot into the 12 foot and try and get to the button, but they never throw from the center line out, or they don't throw an awful lot of them. This one a little wider path for Chris. Sweepers knew that was heavy. They were trying to let that tick on one of those front rocks. Didn't want to go to the back of the rings. It'll stick around though, back 8. And so changing here for Brent, instead of going around the corner, looking at a run on these two blues at the front.
Preserving his opportunity to go to the center for his last couple rocks for sure.
Exactly. The ability to score. We talked about that if you were tuning in last night. There was in the women's, we're also hosting the Scotties Tournament of Hearts, and it was Arsenault and Breen. Lots of rocks in play, and there were a couple ends where it didn't look like the teams were going to be able to have that last shot to score. So watch that shooter.
I think they were hoping for the run back onto the stone in the back of the house there, but certainly nice to get the front end cleared up.
Yeah, I think that's a great result. Just the back 12, back 8 stone. Both these teams dropped their first game last night. Double whammy here for the team MacDougall. They played Stuart Thompson, Kendall's brother, last night. My brother. I never know if people know that. Kendall and Stuart are my brothers. And yeah, it was a tight battle. There were just a couple ends. Stuart's team was able to get to convert to the deuce and then hold Brent to the single. So the score broke away a little bit there. And then Kendall Thompson played Andrew Gibson and looked to be controlling all game and came home in 10 tied with Hammer and looking good all end. And then Andrew Gibson made a hell of a shot, drew right to the button.
He earned his money as skip for that game.
and I don't know that there was even a shot to win for Kendall. He tried one, just over curled and didn't quite chip it out. But it was, it was a shockingly good shot. So Gibson picked up a win.
And Gibson is a new team this year, a new combination of members, is it not?
Yeah, they are. And these players all know each other well. Of course, Don McDermott and Mike Bardsley, longtime front end for Jamie Murphy, who's out here. They haven't played for a couple years, and Andrew hadn't either, although he seems to be a super spare. Andrew, of course, part of the Brier Championship team in 2004 with Mark Dacey. So Andrew pulled Mike Fleming at third, brought the front end together, and they've been doing well this year.
It's always fun to see some new combinations, and it's always nice to see some teams that work well together sort of stick it out as well.
Yeah, and this has been a year, I think, for probably about half the teams have stuck with the same or mostly the same lineups, which is nice to see. And like you said, a couple new teams. Matt Manuel coming up from juniors, so of course there's a new team.
So Kendall's got lots of rocks in play here.
Yes, keeping the 4-foot clear is the goal now for Team MacDougall. Probably not a great chance for the deuce at this point.
It's a fairly quiet hit. Definitely wants to stick around.
I was watching the sheet last night in the Arsenault-Breen game, and there were a couple pass where the hits would run quite straight, just outside the 4-foot line, coming home with the out turn. Both teams had some trouble at different points in the game. And then there was a draw path. It was the out turn going away from the glass that they really had trouble burying on the draw to the button, but coming the other direction, it was burying nicely with the in turn.
Okay.
We'll see if that's consistent here today. Ice conditions change throughout the day. Of course, there's lots of factors with temperature and humidity.
You could see that last night. A lot of the gals were around the 6th, 7th end started putting on an extra layer. Certainly the skips did.
Yeah, it got cold.
Yeah.
And then a couple teams left the ice, and
that changes things again.
Yeah, teams coming in mentioned it felt like it dropped a few degrees. Well, this is a good one there to sit 3, trying to keep some separation with those blue stones. Brent does have a hit and roll behind the top 12 blue. I think he'll go pretty hard for that.
That would be his only chance for 2 at this point, I think.
Yeah, at this point he knows he's getting forced, so they'll play pretty aggressively for this roll. Of course, you always talk about weight selection, whichever turn you want to throw. This throwing into the rock will give you the steeper roll, but it gets you a greater chance to continue to roll with hitting more of the stones, so Brent can come up.
Yeah, you'll get more action
nose.
with this turn for sure.
Hit it too thin and you're in trouble, but thick's all right. So here's Brent on his hit and roll. This one looks like it's curling pretty hard away from the line.
It really does. The sweeper's really digging in.
I don't know if Kirk can hold that high. They'll just
nose.
Get
really.
nose.
But still, the first plan, I think, was to get that rock out. So partial achievement
plan
there.
A in mind. Absolutely. And that, again, in the game last night, I was seeing that we're seeing the draws hang straight in that direction, but if you're throwing a hit close to that center line, they were curling early.
Center line can be tricky, particularly as the game goes on, for sure.
Yeah, you get a lot of sweeping across it, and the pebble will break down often.
And your slide path in the hog area, from hog to back line.
That's where it breaks down. So Kendall playing the hit here.
He selected the other turn. Again, looking for the separation, I think.
Yeah, there's no point in rolling that stone to the center and leaving Brandon nose hit. He wants to change the position and make it that if Brent is tight and over curls, it's easier to roll out and give up a steal. Interesting, Brent stuck with this turn. That's what he played. He just watched Kendall's, though, as well.
Yeah, you want to be very precise. The hit against 3, if you roll out, you're giving away 2.
So Brent MacDougall, last stone in the first end here, facing 3, like you said, Pam. Needs to stick around in the 8-foot.
Looks good. Trying to make it curl. Got his roll that he wanted. Oh.
That one did not curl as much as his first. That ends up in a steal of 2 for Team Thompson.
And I think Kendall was smart. He had his rock in a slightly different position, and I think that's important. You don't want to give somebody the same shot twice because they're just typically going to make it better the second time, I think. That was a good result for Kendall Thompson in that end.
Certainly seemed to come out of nowhere. Routine hit for Brent, and but you'll see that it over curled on his first, and then maybe gave that extra weight on the second in a path where it didn't curl as much off the center line. Not how we would have expected that to go. Nevertheless, 2-0. Thompson will lead it off again. This is Michael Brophy throwing lead stones.
And it's a long game. We're still playing 10 ends at this year.
Oh yes, I didn't mention the rules of play. 10 ends, 38 minutes of thinking time, 2 timeouts. We have a 5th end break.
Which the commentators appreciate.
We appreciate it. If you're watching at work, that's when you'll actually be doing your work. So we'll probably see a similar setup here with the corner guard from Kirk. It's a round robin, so it's a long week for these teams. 7 games. You play every other team in the tournament. Top 3 advance to the playoffs, and it is a hard cutoff. There's no second chances once you make the playoffs. It's a semi for teams number 2 and 3 based on record. And the top team goes straight to the final. So you're rewarded for your top record after the round robin.
And it gives you a little bit of rest from your last game to your final as well, which can be well appreciated, I would think, by the end of a long grind.
You always get people saying, well, you have a day off and you don't have to curl and you forget about the ice. Maybe it's better to curl in the semi, because there are some stats, I think, that show the team making it through the semi often wins, but one of the teams doesn't make it through the semi.
That's right.
I feel like the goal is to get to the final.
I think so. I figure that comment comes from the two teams in the semi, right?
Yeah.
Oh, it's better to play the semi. It's a part of the psychology.
Because we had to.
Yeah, exactly.
We got the practice.
What a great center guard there.
Yeah, nice
even
shot.
Yeah.
Chokes off the draw a little
Sure
bit, so you see Brent asking Kirk to now come around the center. This was the path coming home that ran a little straight if you got this out. Some of the shots last night weren't finishing. Curious to see if it's the same this morning. This one's moving nicely. They had to wait for it to get by that guard. They don't want it to be heavy and bounce. A little bounce.
Little bounce there. I think you're right. I think it is running straight. He has there wasn't a lot of rotation on that rock. So I think if you had a little more positive, it might really run there.
Yeah, we were seeing a couple draws that there were players between the two teams, players threw different handles last night, and the ones without were getting that finish, and they were getting that curl throughout the path. But any setting out or being wide of the broom was not coming back. So
now there was talk of
this is the same.
Yeah. Oh, is he going to get by the guard? Oh, just chipped it.
No, and we are still in 5 rock rule territory, so that guard goes back. Can't be removed, even if it was unintentional.
They're looking for the ring on the ice where it was sitting.
It was closer to the 4-foot line.
I think so. But as long as they're both happy in the end, I think, and I think it was a little more even with the blue. Oh, no, that was the other one, yeah.
As long as the teams agree.
So Brent's still looking for the draw in here. He might have tightened his ice a little bit, I think.
Got away with that one. It was that yellow was wide open, so here's the chance.
Well, his corner guard helped him out in the end. That's great. All too often, those corner guards get ignored because of complications, so it's nice
you're
that
forced to play around the center. At least it came into play.
Exactly.
Now this one's really taking off.
They're really working to get that in. Partially buried. Got a bit of a...
Yeah, it chokes off the hit on the second shot Yellowstone. Center guard's in the way for Team Thompson now.
And they have to be careful if they go after that one that they don't chip their own out on the way through.
Looking at the run in that center guard. We're playing another guard. This is interesting.
I was thinking...
It's really early to be doing this, but...
It is. But to run the center guard, they don't have last rock. That center guard is their friend in some ways.
Yeah, and they're keeping in mind they are shot stone at this point. It's hard. I would like to see another blue in there, but I understand the thinking as well in this case. Don't overlap these guards, and you will have both to use later.
Exactly. This looks a little heavier than... Oh, they're going to promote the yellow.
Yeah, that is pretty straight there.
Right
That's
into a
2 in a row
biter there. Yes, that is very straight. I agree. And I think that handle was a little more positive, similar to what you saw last night.
Yep.
a little bit of a difference there.
Tighten up the ice. For Chris in particular, I think he has a little more rotation than the rest of the team.
That can be hard to keep track of as a skip. I mean, I know they play together all season, and you certainly know your players, but there can be an awful lot to think about when you're standing there holding that broom.
So Kirk can hold this one. There's a short raise. Yellow onto blue. He's got to get this by the guard, though.
Two sweepers. It looks like it's close. Oh.
But if they can roll the shooter in, they did. Nice result. Getting a little dicey here for Team Thompson.
And I think the shooter there is biting as well.
Yep.
Right up there by the Scotty side.
Yeah. It is. It's always one of the interesting things with teaching learn to curl. And you say, okay, what's the score? My rock is on the button versus just touching the 12.
Yes.
And it's the only rock in play. And they're like, oh, no. The one in the middle's worth more. And I was shocked.
That's only in darts.
When it's not.
So what do we think the call is going to be here? I don't see a broom going down just yet.
They talked about hitting the yellow that's on the center line, rolling the shooter. I think some protection would be useful here for the Bluestones, just given that there are 4 yellows in the rings. To be careful here. We saw a couple runs straight.
I was taking the other turn.
This is the in turn. So I think this will be more weight than we've seen with the other soft hits. Set that out a little bit. So trying to keep this high side. They don't want to come up past nose.
Like to have a little roll behind their own blue.
Keeping the shooter would be great here.
It's nice to get rid of those 2 rocks. And the shooter stays. Very nice.
Good result. And the shooter, importantly, they're not worried about the second shot necessarily. But they're out counting that little nibbler.
Which can be very important. If MacDougall gets a little hit and roll here behind that guard lineup, it would be very nice.
So this, Marty's over curled here. I'm trying to keep this high side.
This is Paul Dexter's first, right? Yeah. Oh, that's nice.
Shooter rolls. Back 8-foot area, and that is buried. The only real play here is a run on the... There's a double on the 2 yellows. This is uncharted territory for the team so far. Will be a total guess. Kendall thinks, just saying to Bryce, he thinks it's going to run straight.
And he's throwing the in? Out turn on that. Okay, I just didn't see where my perspective couldn't see where the broom was.
Yeah, both these teams would have a tendency to play the outside in. I was surprised last end when Brent threw the inside out. Don't want to tick that top yellow.
That's good.
Makes the double. Michael will make sure of it.
Nice shot.
Good shot. Good pair from Bryce. Really starts to get them out of trouble, but you see Brent's not worried.
No.
He'll just call the draw. Still has a corner guard.
But still, from Kendall's point of view, I mean, he's making him make the tougher shots, so.
Similar to the first end for Brent, when you know the other team is trying to force you, go pretty hard for your 2. That one looked like it was curling, but it seems to have settled. How heavy is it? Sweepers didn't want to sweep that. Oh, just through the back.
The draw after the hit, it's always a tough shot. Do you know what I mean? Like from a field
And a
point of
new
view.
path,
A new
too.
path, yeah.
You give it that little extra. The ice might be fresh, but it's getting warmed up, and it's a lot of factors. So here we're seeing a draw called. Kendall could go around the corner guard the same way that Paul just threw, but they're opting for the tighter guard that's a little closer to center. The goal of this would be to shrink the scoring area.
Oh, we may have a change of plan. We're going a new path.
Playing the wide in turnaround. They obviously like playing around this guard. This was the path that was very nice last night. I don't know if they watched it or they played this in practice.
They should have, I think, played that in practice. Typically, the outside in kind of, yeah.
It's just a little wider than draw to the button. They may have thrown out in this and noticed that it curled.
And this has been fresh. This is new. No one's been out here yet, so may not be quite up to speed yet.
But the thinking here, so if the other call didn't finish, this thinking is to keep the exposed side of this rock away from allowing Brent to make a hit and roll.
Yeah, I really like this call.
Sweepers need to get it by, will they?
There, guys. You can hear them.
Just by. Great
That's
sweeping.
Buried nicely. That's a really good shot.
Yeah, that's a really nice path. I think it'll get sped up. See a couple more shots down that way further in the game.
Because it really did not bury very well coming around the center guards on the left side of the sheet there with MacDougall's last. I think Paul threw the rock, but it really didn't look like it was going to bury.
Yeah, it curled off the center line, kind of like Brent's hit, and then stopped curling.
Yeah.
Straightened up. So Brent's going for the wide intern as well. Same path. A little wider out, trying to get the 4 foot. I think they both recognize that this is a nice spot to draw.
And if Brent didn't go here, I think Kendall could on his next, and then they would have a heck of a time, and your scoring area really shrinks.
Beat him to it.
Yeah.
Looks like they're by. Can they get a piece of the 4 foot? This is close.
I think.
Oh, what a shot.
Oh, very nice.
Shot rock. That's 2 good ones in a row.
Now, of course, that one didn't bury. They just didn't have enough rings left, really, to get it to pull around all the way.
That was a pretty good effort. They weren't really far by that blue stone. So hits available for Kendall. Won't probably be able to keep the shooter here. They probably won't want to get too cute. Don't play it too close to those guards. This is one where it's really important to just hit the broom, trust the broom, throw your shot. A lot of people that'll see those guards and toss it a bit wide.
Yes, just to be sure. So this is nice control weight. I got about 10 seconds hog to hog. I was just curious to see how quickly these fellas were throwing their hits.
Yeah, I don't think they're biffing them. There's enough areas in the ice that it's running a bit straight that just happy to throw that soft weight, control it with sweeping, get a little bit of curl.
Yes, you do have the opportunity to have a little control with the sweeping if you don't throw it too heavy.
So this is the second end in a row. Last rock for Brent MacDougall. He's facing 3. This time it's a draw, but he just threw this successfully.
Weight should be pretty much the same path, I think, as he chose on his first one.
Line looks pretty good. They just needed to stop. Has to be pretty close to that 4 foot. And Bryce sweeping hard, goes, just nibbles the back 12, so it'll be 1 blue. Just 2 feet heavy there for Brent.
And the ice looks fairly quick today. I was getting 14.5 on that last rock. So that's nice speed.
It's nice to see, and we did see a little bit yesterday slowing down, and as the teams were coming off the ice, really emphasizing that. The third end in a row here, Team Thompson without Hammer. They'll throw first, Michael Brophy up.
And they must be feeling pretty good about their game so far.
Yeah, they're playing well and putting pressure on. Hasn't been necessarily, incredibly difficult shots. Brent just having a little miss in the first end and a difficult draw there in the second. Corner guard set up again.
The corner guard looks like it's about halfway, maybe a little tighter than halfway. It's a nice spot.
Yeah, corner guards, as much as you think, we've got so much room and anywhere is good. You really kind of do want to have them covering that 8 foot. Not too close to the button, blocking a draw path. And if they're too high, the team trying to hit can get around them. So fairly tight. Usually a little closer than halfway is ideal. Depends on the curl, though. If you have lots of curl, tighter's better.
So it looks like Brophy is going to put a second one in the house, possibly here. Little tap on the one that he put in the first time. Brent's going to ignore those this time and use that corner guard.
No center guard there for Team Thompson this time. They got in a little trouble with that last end.
And they're up 3. The pressure is on Brent at this point. They're just keeping this clean. The sweepers must like the weight. Buried around very nicely. It's a little behind tee, but well buried for sure.
Yeah, behind the guard's the important thing there. Sometimes I don't mind it going deep. You see there, Kendall coming around. He can't hit the guard yet, and that's why. If you're around the tee line, maybe not quite as deep as that. It gives your team a little more room to draw a second one around. But too deep, and the other team can freeze.
Yeah. Even if he doesn't freeze completely, having the yellow one back there can act as a bit of a catcher.
The reverse guard.
Yeah, I never thought of it that way.
Waiting for the curl on this one. If the weight's good, it should finish up. They're not too close to the guard, following a similar path to the Yellowstone from Kirk.
Just going to give this a wee little tap. Just to the, halfway on that edge of 12 foot there.
Looks like the blue stone is fairly well buried. Brent can't access it, and realizing that yellow stone, the back 12, could come into play. That's the reason for this call, a double.
Yeah, at this point, that yellow rock back there is not really doing Brent any favors.
Yeah, I mean, it's far enough back that it may not be a catcher for the blue.
True, especially where it's off to the edge there.
So look where that blue goes, right out the side.
Nice control weight on that. Wasn't overthrown, just popped it out. Left himself sitting, that was great.
Of course, when you don't play the draw and you play the hit into the side, the shooter is now open. So there's a double here for Chris McRae. I think Chris is the only lefty on the sheet today. This one just took off.
Ooh, did it ever.
Well, they made contact, yes. That looked
That was a bit
suspect.
Bit of a plan B there.
Yeah, they were trying to make the double on the yellows, so.
And we haven't seen that kind of curl, certainly on a hit going down that way yet. They might be checking underneath that rock.
Yeah. Looked suspiciously like a grab. So Marty Gavin here, chance to come around that center guard again. Now you see why that yellow one in the back 12 was so key for Brent to pay attention to.
A well-placed stone here will be great. See the sweeper saying whoa to the rock. That looks great.
Put it there on his own. Didn't want to use the sweepers. That is buried. Kendall's going to have to play a run at it. Can't really afford to down weight.
Yep, it's calling hack weight, it looks like.
So the soft weight, trying to move that stone. Ticking the guard's not the end of the world.
Which is good, because it looks like
there might be.
It looks like that might happen. Oh dear, little redirect.
Ever so slight tick. And they'd love to keep that shooter, just enough weight that the shooter rolls out the back.
Looked like pretty good weight on that shot overall. But just that little tick was enough to redirect it and change the outcome there. So Brent's looking to remove Kendall Thompson's shooter, or not shooter, but shot stone. And a nice little roll to the far side would be great. Spread out those points.
The shooter, little roll over to the other side of the sheet. Good result.
Now with that guard ticked a little bit out of the way, this is more of a quiet hit, but certainly won't be hack weight. Looking for the hit and roll, sort of towards center here. This is curling.
Had the over curl on Chris's as well. They have to get by the guard on this one.
Which they did. And a nice little roll to boot. Oh, they got the double actually, that's great.
So not too complicated of a call here for Paul. It's just a hit. Don't want to hit too high side, risking a jam. And if you over curl and roll, you set up a double. So just high a nose, probably ideal here. Avoided the jam. Rolled the shooter. Good result. Well played. A nice soft weight.
Really good communication on that shot from the sweepers. As soon as that rock was released, I couldn't hear what they were saying, but there were lots of hand signals, and both sweepers agreed immediately with their hand signals. And I think that's pretty key to making good shots, having that communication and for the skip to know what's going on.
Exactly, especially as with different weights, the rock will take a different path and curl differently, so you really do need to communicate. The skip needs to know for a line call what the weight is.
Exactly.
So hit here for Kendall. They'll try and roll the shooter in front of the other yellow stone.
And that looks fairly open. I don't think they buried that behind that guard, so they just made this shot, I think, with the last time.
Trying to get a roll there, but just not. They're having over curls there, this end.
Looks like Brent is going to follow the same shot. Nice little hit and roll.
Important just to sit 2 here. They did have the 3 stones in the rings, but getting 2 would be a great way to make it out of this end. Just have to survive a double. Stick the shooter here.
Yep, stick the shooter and don't make the double too easy. And that was a nose hit.
So I don't think Kendall has a double. He can't see enough on the guard side of that yellow top stone to make the slash double. So now they're talking about hit and roll on the top one, but it wouldn't be
hard to get shot.
So then they're looking at the back one. It's hard to roll and get shot. So you can see what a good shot that was from Brent.
And for Brent's last, the house is quite open, so that puts him in a good position to score his 2. We're looking at very close games across all of the sheets. O'Leary and Stevens are tied at 1 apiece. It looks like on Manuel Murphy, it looks like Murphy is up 1-0 over Manuel after 3. And Gibson is up 3-2 over Stuart Thompson after 2. They're just waiting to finish their third end now.
So Kendall had attempted the thin double, but over curled a hair. Probably a little more than a hair. Rolled over the top, so it's an open draw for 2 points for Brent here.
Just has to hit the paint.
Hardest draw you can make.
Yep, I agree.
Draw to the button, no problem. Draw to the paint, uh-oh.
It's funny how that works sometimes.
Curling really screws with your head.
Both sweepers on this. They don't look too panicked, though. Nice chance for Brent to get that draw weight nailed after the last end where he was just a little bit heavy on his last shot.
That's that one.
Lovely
right
shot.
Into the back 4-foot, great shot. Good for 2. Scores now 3-2.
Nice
Thompson.
close game. Keeps it fun.
Exactly. And there's no need to panic like we talk about when a team gets down a couple points early. We have 10 ends. There's time. I'd like to have it close at the half if you did get down at the start, and claw back, slow and steady. It's hard to be patient, but it's really important in this game.
Everybody just finished up their fourth end, except the O'Leary-Stevens game is well into their fourth, actually. They must be playing speed curling over there.
So different setup this end. We got Yellowstone throwing first. Kirk McDermott's up. Without the hammer, Team MacDougall. They'll try and generate activity in the center of the rings. They won't put this one in. They're down one without, so I'm going to try and force Kendall to a single here.
Change of turn there. This is, I think, we saw them finish a little bit better on this side.
This is a nice path, yeah.
They didn't go quite to center the last time we threw this way, but they were definitely finishing nicer.
And the outturn path, the other turn, was, of course, where in the second end it got really messy for Team Thompson, where they took the wide guard and just wasn't ideal. Sweepers need to get this into the rings. They don't want to leave another guard for Team MacDougall. Even a biter helps. Oh,
it's really close.
Don't know that that one's there.
It doesn't look like it from our angle. Yeah, just take a peek at the overhead. It doesn't look like it's quite there for a biter. Brent would like this to settle right in behind that now double center guard situation. That's always the risk of playing the come around on that early shot.
Leave a little light, give the other team a chance to do just that. As much as I hate to say, that might be a little deep there for Kirk. Just a foot or two.
Yeah, it makes it easier to have a play at this point for sure.
There is kind of a sweet spot in the high top 4, top 8 area for those stones. If anything comes down onto that yellow, it gets bumped back. Won't be shot anymore. So this is a split call. Trying to make use of the first one that was thrown and actually get 2 in the rings, 2 blue in the rings. They won't be shot stone, but if you look where the first stone ended up, now it's open on the other side. Shooter rolls to the back tee line, and Brent
and you have a raised
feel
possibility.
So safe.
Yep, you have a raised possibility with that blue.
I'm already a little concerned about making a play on that top blue. If you ever hang it wide, runs it back on your own. So they're electing to hit the second stone on the side 8.
And this will help reduce the chance of multiples, certainly.
It will. It's a little higher. Fairly flat double would be there if you tried it now. So just a nose.
Working your way into the double. Sweepers are just keeping this clean. It's usually a good sign. Brophy sweeping now just to get a little curl on it. Rolls out.
Stick it. You wanted to get to the nose on that one to set up a double in the future. I think Brent's still a little worried. Can't really ignore these blues around the side. They seem very innocuous, these blue, or any stones for the team with hammer that are around the edge of the 12-foot. And they are if there's lots of stuff going on in the middle. But when there's only one yellow stone in the middle, you start to think, ooh,
they can come back to bite
count.
you. Yeah.
Paul trying to keep this one straight. It's curling.
It sure is. Got a little piece there, just enough.
Watch the shooter, though. You don't want that shooter to roll out. And it will.
Candle swept the dickens out of that, right out the back door.
So some might go for a raise on the blue, but a good setup shot is this call. Freeze. Like to have a second blue in there in front of the tee line.
It's starting to catch the curl now. Looks like it's going to finish quite nicely. Wow, what a great shot.
Pretty good.
Just what the skip asked for, I think.
It's one of those ones where you say you couldn't have walked down and placed it any better.
Exactly.
It's nice to have those. So yellow needs another one in there, so Brent's asking Paul Dexter to throw that same freeze. I think both teams are liking this in-turn path here.
Well, the center guard is not super high, but it's certainly high enough they can get that finish, and they found their ice, and it's managing to come right around.
Trying to get the curl out of this one now, going for weight as well. Looks to be there. We'll get that just across the nose. Great shot. 2 in a row there from Chris and Paul.
Can we make it 3?
So Kendall and Bryce are just talking about their options here.
Run the guard.
His initial thought was to play a draw. But at this point, they're a little worried about scoring.
And that center guard is definitely preventing any corrective hits at this point.
Yeah, if you need to bail.
It's pretty hard
It's not
right now.
there right now.
No.
Going hard on this to make sure the shooter rolls out. It's important.
That was a good peel. Changes the end around quite a bit here.
Brent's happy to play along. A force is a good result for Brent, and right now he's sitting 1, and the force is definitely a possibility, so he could guard again. The angles are slightly favoring that yellow stone in the top 4 foot.
Hoping to leave the guard in place with that hit maybe, but it rolls away.
So this could be interesting what gets done here.
They definitely need to make a play if they want to score. But you want to jiggle those angles around just right.
Yeah, my initial thought was this double that the team's looking at right now. That yellow on the button is helping Team Thompson right now because it's keeping that blue in play.
for sure.
Kendall talked about hitting the yellow on the top 4 foot and rolling the shooter over. You'd lose the back yellow and you'd keep both blues. My fear with playing on the top 4 foot one is you leave the blues close together and leave a double.
Right.
I
Which
think
quickly
in
can
this
turn into
case,
a blank, maybe.
Yeah, I think in this case, playing on the 4th shot first, you actually can keep that back yellow. So they're just trying to remove the 2 yellows at the top of the rings, not the button one. Might jiggle it a bit.
Open it up a little for, perhaps, for another play.
Hard on line right out of Bryce's hand. Trying to make contact. They hit their own blue. Watch this blue spill out the back. So thin that it did not work out the way they wanted. Pop their shot stone or their blue stone out the side, so Paul just has a hit here.
And the shot rock rolled over and cleaned off.
Paul threw 2. I think it's Brent's throw. Yeah, Paul was just down. Paul sweeps, so I was going to say, yeah, he has to go back down. I didn't see Marty down at this end. Because we are on skip stones.
There's quite a few teams now that mix up their positions relative to traditional, whether it's a skip throwing first or third, or, keeping your mate in because they're a stronger sweeper.
Exactly.
It's really nice to see people sort of trying to reconfigure the team in the best possible way to be the most effective.
Yeah, I had that. I was called the game, but had my last rock thrower held the broom for me as I threw third.
Takes a lot of the pressure off because it's, you're thinking the whole time. It's nice to.
Good shot from Brent.
Yeah, really nice shot.
See if the shooter can maybe squirt through, make contact with the low stone first, come off the back. This will be a lot of weight. But yeah, we're talking about different lineups. You can try, and there's no harm in trying and seeing what works for your team. I threw last for a while, and Liz was she was growing in her curling and just getting to be a very good thrower, and our whole team just said, why doesn't she just throw last? And she became an excellent last rock thrower.
And it's kind of nice. You can have, you're not pressured into thinking the whole game, so you can just focus on throwing your 2 stones. This looks like it's got some speed on it.
Trying to hit the center line one first. Watch where the shooter goes, though. Oh, they were trying to go back onto the yellow, back 8. Probably had to hit that a bit thicker. Too thin.
I'm just talking about where to place this stone to make it the most difficult.
Yeah, and Kendall's always going to have 2 shots, a draw and a hit. So what do you want to make him do? You can place your stone in a place that forces a certain shot. So if you put another one in the same area at the back, Kendall's probably going to just draw down to it. So they're talking about in front of the tee line.
Without setting up an easy double, right, in case he's looking to blank.
Yeah, there could be a double blank.
And also to make it, if you do draw, to make it a tough one. If he tries the double to have some separation, it's kind of.
If you're
knowing your opponent is helpful here.
Yeah, and if you're into the 4 foot, Kendall can hit and sit. So the idea here is to actually be in the 8 foot, perhaps biting 4, and make him think about it. If he plays the hit, won't be shot, will have to make the draw. So if this call indicates that they would like Kendall to draw.
And it would be a tight little scoring area for him.
Exactly. 4 foot. And Kendall hasn't thrown a lot of draws.
Sweepers jumped on this pretty quick, but they're just keeping it clean now.
Sometimes I'll call that as I'm in the house. If the thrower's a little tight, I'm like, hard line early.
Yeah.
Then they can
they're looking for this.
let it go later.
Gavin putting his broom. Stop it right there. Look at that. Well-managed shot. Really nice. I like it when the person in the house puts their broom down right where they want it to go. I think that's really good communication back to your sweepers, and it gives them a chance to sort of have a target that's very precise.
Especially when the rings are fairly empty. So if the sweepers know they're freezing on a stone back 4, they can reference that stone. But in the case where there's nothing, it's really, really useful to have that broom in place. Sweepers, as we all know, are constantly looking up and checking checking distance from the house, judging weight. So this is a draw for the single. It's in the out-turn path. This is the area that was staying straight.
I think he's thinking.
Waiting for it to take the curl
now. He's got backing
now.
there.
Don't want to play to the backing, but if it is heavy, let's try and get over to it. And that one just shooter rolls a little too far. Ends up as a steal of 1, and all of a sudden it's a tie game here.
And that was down that straighter side again. Yeah, definitely a trend there.
Really tough, 2 different sides to the sheet, but steal of 1 for Team MacDougall. Tie things up, 3-3. We go into the 5th. We'll have a break after the 5th end here at the Deloitte Tankard draw 2.
I find it interesting. I don't know if you see the same thing, but if I'm calling a game as the skip, I don't think I see things the same way I do as when I'm watching a game. And again, when I'm coaching, I don't see it the same way either. There's things that I recognize differently.
Is it because you are unbiased?
I think so. I think so.
As a player and coach, you tend to want your team to win. I think there's something to be said for trying to be an impartial spokesperson, just explaining strategy. I find the same thing. But the really cool part is, as a player, I think that watching and commenting on games like this has actually helped because I'm more able to step back from the game and look as, okay, what is the ideal call here, regardless of
because in the
team's abilities and all of those things.
Yeah.
You tend to want to call a certain turn for your player that likes their in turn, right?
Or you think, oh dear, they haven't made a such and such all game. I better not call it. But if it's the right shot,
you should.
You should.
Yeah. And you learn from your opponents. It just causes you to pay more attention. And it's nice to be able to watch and see the players and their focus. Sometimes when you get complacent in your club curling game, you lose focus and you start chatting about whatever. But when you want to take it seriously, every player is involved in every shot.
I think that lack of focus, certainly I see that with junior players. I had a team of only 3 last night, and they remarked how much more focused they were because there was nobody to talk to.
The sweeper had to pay attention.
And as a result, they upped their game significantly.
Sometimes teams like playing with 3. It's mentally exhausting for the one sweeper, but you get to throw 3 stones, so you get a little more
Well, and these young
play.
bouncy fellas just pop right up and chase their stone and jump on to help
True.
sweep. So
They should play mixed doubles.
they do, actually. Yeah. Speaking of which, am I correct in saying that on Kendall Thompson's team here, you have Bryce Everest? Did he not win the mixed doubles for Nova Scotia this year?
Yes, Bryce
Right.
and his fiancée Carly Jones, who's playing with Team McAvoy in the Scotties Tournament of Hearts. Just defended, I think this is their 3rd year in a row they've won for Nova Scotia. Which is pretty exciting.
I keep thinking, there's a number of shots when I see him in the hack getting ready to throw. I keep thinking to myself, oh, he's going to get this one. He plays this a lot when he plays mixed doubles.
There's a lot of draws and taps around center guards in mixed doubles if you've never watched it.
Does he play the middle three?
Good question.
I don't know. I was just thinking, oftentimes
watching
that middle three, there's a point where you have to do the big cleanup down center.
Every once in a while,
Every once in a while, yeah.
I'm really trying to think. I've watched them, and I can't remember what order they've
I've
gone.
watched them too, and I can't remember. And of course, they're not
and
required.
You can switch.
Yeah, you can switch mid-game.
I find most teams stick with their order, though. I don't see a lot of teams switching the
only
first
reason
and
you
last
might want to
middle.
is if somebody was having a really poor game. I don't know if you want them throwing 3/5 of your shots.
Yeah, but do you want them throwing
First and last, that's true. That's true.
The first stone is
There's
so
nowhere
key
to hide,
too,
is there?
right? When you
It
don't have
is.
hammer and mixed doubles, you're
It's-
freezing to a
yeah.
back forefoot. If you don't make it, the other team is all over you.
Yeah, and if you make it, you play it out nicely, you can almost steal
Yeah.
quite reliably by comparison.
I was learning a bit about stick curling,
Oh,
as
yeah,
we
that's
have
fun.
a very open end here.
Yep.
Team Thompson obviously wants to blank with so you and I curl at Mayflower, and our stick curling coordinator, his name's Kim Wytalk, and he had this nice sheet where he's written down the rule changes. So he's if you don't know stick curling, it's not just regular curling throwing with a stick. It's a totally different game.
It is. It's really
2 players.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, you
Whole
don't.
different thing.
I didn't know. So you stay at your one end. You throw or deliver 6 rocks.
Yep.
And then you're the skip for your
Yeah.
teammate.
So there's 2 skips on every team.
You don't cross half.
No,
You
and you're not allowed.
Your timeout is you meet in the middle.
Oh, is that where they do it? Okay.
And you cannot go to the other side. So you
Oh, I
can
didn't know
never go
that.
down and see the target end where
Right.
you're throwing to as a thrower. And I
Interesting.
find that shocking. But it's a relatively limited number of rule changes compared to traditional curling. Number of players, number of stones.
Sweeping rules, you can only sweep from the hog in.
Yes. Yeah, you can't.
And you can't follow your stone.
You
so
can't
it's
follow your stone, you're throwing
the
with the
skip
device.
has
Yeah.
to run out and decide, should I watch line and do nothing or put
Yeah.
a broom on this?
So just those few changes in the style of play, and instead of a free guard zone, I believe it's called like the free rock zone. So you
Okay.
can't hit. It's just like mixed doubles where you can't hit
right.
within a certain number of stones.
Yeah.
So with a limited number of rule changes, totally different game.
Yeah. And they're on and off the ice quickly, which is appealing to people with many things to do. Instead of setting aside a 2-hour plus social time
I think it's
for a game.
6 ends.
6 ends, but there's not as many rocks. So they're pretty
6,
close to an
yeah.
hour.
Yeah, it
typically,
takes about an
yeah.
hour. Yeah.
On the downside, where you're not as physically active, I think you'd need another layer. So your toes don't get cold.
Just have to keep it intense, keep the heart pumping.
That's right.
But yeah, it's incredible. And same thing with mixed doubles. When you really look at it, it's not that different. You just reduce the number of players and the time or the format in which it's thrown, and you have those couple setup rocks and whole new game.
Yeah, the variety of shots is different in both. So both teams seem fairly content to keep this end fairly open. I wonder how their time is doing. I don't have a visual on that from here, but you sometimes see when teams are taking too long to decide, they're quite pleased to run them through. Catch
Yeah,
up a
I'm
little.
looking at the other sheets, and we're on par
Yeah,
with those. Maybe, yeah, pretty similar to the other sheets. Skip rocks on 2 of the sheets, seconds rocks on 2 of the sheets, and we're on third rocks.
close games on most sheets. I see Stuart Thompson is
one
pulling
sheet
ahead
has
of Gibson there on sheet C. It looks like 7-2. after 4, so they're in their 5th as well. The other games are quite close. O'Leary 2-1 over Stevens after 4, and Manuel Murphy are tied at 1 after 4 ends. And that's not too unusual with Murphy's teams. He tends to play very low-scoring games, as I recall. I haven't seen him play this year, but
depends. I think it depends on the opponent too. Murphy plays a pretty aggressive game, but bails when he's not happy with how things go.
Mm-hmm. And he knows when to bail quite clearly by the score management.
Yeah. He was. I was just keeping an eye on things over there earlier and was getting visually frustrated in one end because he wasn't getting a chance to score his 2 with hammer. Was really trying to get something going, but you gotta swallow that and throw for the blank if that's the right thing for your team. I've had some talks with my team about that this year. One league game, I said I get really bored when there's no rocks in play, and we were up a bunch of points, and I called some guard or something.
Oh yeah,
or come around, and they were like, "Why?
Why are you doing this?"
I was bored.
I'm bored, yeah.
So I don't do that. I got a talking to. I don't know if we got in trouble for that, but it was certainly a team discussion.
There was a team discussion. Oh wow.
Yeah. I don't think we got in big trouble, but and I knew at the time. I said, I know I should have called a hit or whatever, as we certainly do have, and all these teams would have discussions about their general strategy, how they prefer to play. And in this instance, you'd go over scenarios. What would we play here?
Right.
And then in the future when you're playing a game, oh, we talked about this. We like this, and maybe the ice conditions dictate differently, but your team's tendencies.
So this is interesting. It looks like Brent MacDougall has opted to put that out on the wings, trying to mix things up here a bit, I think.
I'm assuming he's playing the out turn and that it'll go straight. We'll see a lot of weight on this. I think nose is close to being in, if not in. Michael needs to sweep this one just to get it out to the rock. Didn't look like it ever was out to it on release, but got it to nose. Wow. And it is in, so nose was good enough.
So they'll be looking for a little roll here, I think. Otherwise they won't be shot, and it makes for an easy blank.
Interesting. I'm trying to think. I play Brent in our Tuesday league play. I don't remember him always selecting the inside-out turn, but this is a number of times this game. Most curlers choose the outside in, the straighter turn. This one looks good for the roll.
And that might have been a roll selection. Make a little more action on that shot, on that turn rather.
Yeah, I think I'm just catching Brent on a day where he's calling the outside or the inside outs. So this is a blank attempt to end off the 5th.
Hey, Chris, forgot your fruit tray.
2 in a row. Michael's had to sweep in order to keep it high side. Does the trick, so that'll be a blank. We'll stay tied at 3 apiece here after 5 in the Thompson-MacDougall game, and we'll catch you back in 5 minutes after the break.
water this morning. That'll do it.
Is that right? Huh? Oh, come on. Is that right? Yeah.
See?
Oh, yeah, it's black.
We are back, everybody. Selena Thompson here, joined by Pam Sullivan, Kendall Thompson, Brent MacDougall. Tie game 3 apiece. Didn't look so tight in the first couple ends, and then MacDougall just pounded away, and we talk about patience, and that's what they have been. Kirk McDermott up first for Team MacDougall. Thompson with the hammer. Marty Gavin at second, but holds the broom. Paul Dexter at third. Brent MacDougall the skip. They throw the yellow stones and throwing those blue stones. Michael Brophy's going to start us off for Team Thompson. Chris McRae at second. Bryce Everest at third. Kendall Thompson the skip. MacDougall plays out of Mayflower Curling Club. Thompson out of Halifax Curling Club. Just down the road from each other. Peninsula Halifax.
Yes, Kendall got off to a quick start in the first couple of ends, and then Brent MacDougall and his team sort of really hung in there, and it's nice to see the experience of knowing just how long these games are and not sort of losing focus early after a couple of points going the other way.
Patience, and it's going to be that way the whole week as well. Both these teams suffered a loss last night. They don't want to make it 2. It's a long week, 7 games, and if you get to that 3-loss situation, you start to get a little worried. So
makes for a long time.
2 on the board in the loss column at the start of the week. Doesn't make you feel great, but that patience is so important.
Ooh. Paul Dexter just had a little slip there.
Got back up and swept the rock.
They sure
Didn't
did.
touch the rock. First thing curlers always do.
Did he burn the rock?
They slip and fall. Don't touch the rock. You fall in a way that you don't go near the rock.
That's right.
I have a teammate who does what we call the turtle.
Oh dear.
She goes, butt rolls on her back and just rolls into as if a turtle were on their back. It's really funny, but she never hits the rock.
Well, that's good.
I won't say her name.
No,
to protect.
it's to protect the innocent. It's good that she doesn't hit the rock.
Better than innocent. She doesn't touch the rock. That's great.
Right. Maybe she should visit the pro shop and get a new gripper.
Good call. So a few more rocks in play than last end. Team Thompson was happy to blank last end. Didn't see the corner guard go up. Sometimes you'll see the teams play really aggressively in the 6th end. But with this being a 10-end game, I think we'll see that more in the 8th.
And on his last, when Kendall has had last rock, he's elected to go around the center each time. So far.
Don't want to give the team without hammer a chance to put a good one in there, and that's why you see it. Probably also happy to try and put the pressure on later in the end versus the start. But it often ends up in more blanks. I'm surprised we haven't seen more than just the 1 blank this game.
I see Brent there using his broom to line up. Can you see this much of it? The thrower at the other end letting him know. Again, good team communication. Make sure everybody knows what's happening there.
As Marty's just getting ready to throw here, I'll remind everyone the teams that are playing in this Deloitte Tankard, the 2020 Men's Provincial Curling Championships. Winner moves on to play at the Briar in Kingston in March. Andrew Gibson, he's playing Stuart Thompson right now. Sheet C there in the 5th end break. I think Gibson just scored a single. Thompson leads 7-4. Matt Manuel, he's playing Jamie Murphy. After 5, Murphy's up 1 point, 2-1. Manuel with hammer in 6. And Alan O'Leary on sheet B playing Chad Stevens. Stevens with a 3 in the 5th leads 4-2. O'Leary with hammer in the 6th. So that rounds out the field. 8 teams. And like we said earlier, it's a round robin. They all play each other once. Top 3 records move forward with the number 1 record straight to the final on Sunday. And that's at 9 a.m. the men's final on Sunday. Their semi is at 2 p.m. on Saturday. And we are also hosting here at the Dartmouth Curling Club the Scotties Tournament of Hearts. So today the men's draws are at 9 a.m. this draw and 7 p.m. with the women's at 2. And tomorrow it's reversed. Women are at 9 and 7, the men. Just the one game tomorrow at 2 p.m.
That's a nice way to do it. Sometimes it can be quite exhausting if you have 2 a day every day.
It can be an exhausting week. And some people look at it the other way and they say, well, I'd rather do it in 3.5 days versus 5.
Well, and that's a factor as well, because everybody's taking time off of work or vacation or something.
It's part of the reason I think a lot of teams like having the championships in the metro area. Most of these teams
they can go
play in the Halifax Dartmouth area and they live here and can work. I mean, it's a good reason to take a week off if you can get it.
But I suppose you're right. Actually, almost everybody is pretty close to metro as I look across the field.
Yeah, I think the only team that isn't is Chad Stevens, and they're a mix between Truro and Chester, so they're kind of Halifax Falls in the middle.
And not so very far away that you couldn't drive,
Exactly.
One good thing about the round robin as well is you know when you're playing. It's, you know what I mean? You don't have to follow a tree and if this, and it's kind
There's
of
no
nice.
if ands,
right. Yeah, it's kind of nice that way. Particularly this time of year when, weather might be a factor and so on. Looks like a hit, and probably looking for the roll here, I would think.
Yep. This is the straight path.
It's really hanging.
Like to keep that stone around. They don't want to have it involved in anything on the center line, setting up doubles.
So they get a nice little nibble there. I think it's out counting the yellow on the far side. Yep, looks like it from their overhead.
Brent is lining up a double on the blue and then on their own yellow to blue.
So this is Paul Dexter's first in this end.
So they're trying to get the double, but the shooter's going to roll right on top of the other yellow and offset a little bit.
Just needed to hit it just a tiny bit lower.
So I think what that's doing is actually protecting those blue stones.
Makes it harder to remove for sure.
No access to the blues, but it still isn't an easy decision about where to place this next stone. They can hit those yellows and open things up. I think if you make that roll that Kendall's talking about, there's going to be a bit of a drag onto their own blue stone, though. They looked at drawing to the wings. Leaves a double. I think the yellows, if Team MacDougall doesn't remove them, they're going to try and draw around into the forfeits. That's the concern Kendall has here. And there's jam possibilities on the side as well.
I mean, coming from the left side in, I don't think you'd ever get it to bury, but certainly the other way you might be able to.
It was a couple of days.
Time out on Echo. Blue.
So they would like to keep the shooter around on this.
Sweeper's just getting involved at the end. Oh, what a
So
sweet
watch.
shot.
So they got it close enough to nose that the drag didn't pull it back onto the blue in the top 8. I think that's a really good result here.
That's a super
Sitting
result.
3. Brent's lining up another double. If he plays...
Looks like just about nose on that, I think.
He's looking at a triple,
Triple, yeah, I see that.
but it jams.
The triple might be getting greedy. But you never know.
Make the double and try and give yourself an opening for later. Still have a few stones to come.
Jeez, the kids had so much fun at the birthday. Anyway, we got there. We got out of there.
Got the back two. Great
Good
shot.
result, yeah. And the shooter rolls for a
spins
bite.
in. Really good result there from Paul Dexter. He doesn't throw it hard that often, but he can throw it quite hard with accuracy.
I always look at those tall fellas, and I'm certainly not vertically anywhere near there. And I think by the time he kicks out, he's already at the tee line.
You just got to build up all that power in
Yeah.
your legs, regardless of height. You can look at it the other way. Anyone who's less vertically inclined is already closer to the ice, so it's easier to get into your slide quicker.
I suppose so.
It's a hit and roll there from Bryce. Didn't want to roll out, of course, and give up their chance. They do have a chance for a deuce here. Brent's going to have 2 stabs at a double, probably. You can make this 2 ways. You can high side it, go across the face. I think he'd probably prefer to come almost to nose. A little more action on the 2 stones.
It's a long flight.
It's not a terribly long double, but it's still, you have to be pretty accurate. Nice to have the 2 chances at it.
This is the path, the side of the sheet where the draws are curling nicely. Hits should stay fairly straight, and they are responding well to sweeping. A little bit high makes this.
Sweepers look like they...
No, they realized they probably weren't going to make it the way they wanted to, so went for the high side with that hanging. So
It's a great... it's good to see the teams recognizing that and calling it and making the most of it.
So back to the blank here for Thompson. Looking at a potential 3, but a couple nice doubles from the MacDougall rink, and we'll have to settle for nothing.
Yeah, they made some really nice shots to pull out of that, because there was... looked like a good chance to get 2 in that end earlier.
That's exactly what they are.
And the shooter rolls in. So a little easier shot here for Brent than his first. Doesn't have to make a double this time.
Just needs to stick around and force a shot out of his opponent. Do you think he's going to look for the roll towards center so that it's more of a hit on an angle for Kendall, rather?
Yeah, to make it harder for Kendall to roll out. They'll play pretty aggressive on the sweep. Plan A is always to hit the rock
Yeah, definitely.
and not worry too much. But yeah, if they have a chance to call the sweep aggressively, you see Paul there trying to actually not roll out. That's sneaky. Keeps it in the same spot.
And of course, as you indicated, getting the rock out and sticking so that Kendall is forced into some kind of a shot is a well-played stone. I feel like I'm hearing a lot more sweeping calls than we did earlier, just from behind the glass here. I feel like maybe
Are they yelling louder?
I don't know if they're yelling louder or more often. Like a few tight games, maybe there's a few excited calls needed here and there.
Yeah, the intensity always tends to pick up in the second half. You're that much closer to the end.
So that was a nice little blank there, and off to number 6.
7. Oh, they didn't post the blank, did they, in
That's
5?
They didn't.
Get that score up, that no score. Everybody watching the scores on nscurl.com will be upset that things aren't updated.
That's all right.
The teams are supposed to post the scores after the end, but blanks always get forgotten.
Nobody's too excited about it. It doesn't make that much of, it's not the same as getting 3.
And we're the first game to finish the 6th then, so we're ahead of everybody else. We'll keep you updated as we see. We're on to skip stones in just about every other game.
This one is definitely going to be a guard. Sweeper's working at it.
It's a trick. It's a trick. It's a trick. Well, it's just to be able to see.
They're just encouraging it to center, and it makes a nice center guard for them. Well done. Oh, Kendall must have heard you. I see the 5 and 6 went up.
Sibling telepathy.
Electing to come around center again.
Yeah, and in the odd ends, like we mentioned, 6 and 8, they'll try hard, but I was surprised that Kendall didn't put the corner guard up there in 6. They still had, at one point, looking at a couple points.
Yeah,
They were able to generate.
like how those ends are going. Right?
Yeah,
Must
they were
be
able to
seeing
make the
something.
come-arounds and force the play. And for Team MacDougall, they really would like to get a force out of this. They don't have hammer, and they're going to run out of ends if they don't force. This one, plus the remainder, is 4 ends left total.
So Brent's looking for a second tighter center guard here. Or maybe in the house. Yep, settled on in the house. Yeah, that first guard that McDermott threw looked so light to me, but they dragged it down. It was a great shot. This one's hanging out a little longer.
It is. You've seen that on the outturn path. I think this one's just heavy.
A little heavy, yeah.
We'll wick off. You don't have to hit it if you can use it. So the call here is a draw into the pocket.
Yeah, it makes a nice little nest back there.
Even a little higher in the 4-foot's good here. And Kirk would have wanted his Yellowstone in front of that blue instead of beside it. Now you see it's going to be used as backing, just like the other blue. Michael's first. And both teams will probably let this 4-foot get a bit congested as well before a hit's played.
This is finishing nicely.
Echo, yellow.
Right in front of the button there. That's a lovely shot.
Yeah, I think that's a better result than actually freezing to the back.
Oh, definitely. I think so as well.
So what it does is it makes it harder for the MacDougall rink to freeze on top of it. It's a halfway guard, so it's
And if you freeze on top,
there
then
to
you're not
come around.
shot. So, still working on the setup at this point, I think, eh?
You set up until you're not happy and then bail.
working this in for speed. Last little bit of finish there. I think that's just what they asked for.
Worked out great.
Absolutely.
Cued right up on top of that blue stone. So while Michael's was a nice one to the top 4, now Team Thompson's not super happy with the setup.
Oh, I'm sure. That blue one in the center.
The sense of force. An option would be to peel the guard as well. Probably looking at a blank if that happens.
It's not a heck of a lot of ice here. I wonder if they're looking to jiggle some angles around.
They talked about just the straight freeze.
Yeah, the weight looks right for that. This is starting to curl. Should finish in nicely, I think.
If it's heavy, they definitely want to make contact because they'd like to spring. See, open up that blue a little bit. I don't know that they wanted the shooter to roll off like that. Might have left a double. You see Brent indicating there. It's hard to tell.
Oh boy.
It's tight to the yellow. Could go wrong in a lot of ways
It
too.
could go wrong in a lot of ways.
But the yellows are in nice positions right now just because they're straight behind the center guard.
Yes, exactly. Sometimes it's helpful to go down and take a look at the angles before you throw the shot. And I think that's what we're seeing here. Looks like O'Leary got a single in 6, so their score is 3-4. It's Chad Stevens leading on that sheet.
If he's leaving, O'Leary wins.
No, just leading so far. So they did settle on the hit. This is a very precise shot. Be a lot of fun to watch the sweepers.
Have to almost come to nose on this. If you ricochet off the yellow, I don't think he has a risk of not getting to nose. This is over curling. They're at risk of hitting the guard here.
I think so. Ooh,
Got
just
a buy.
papered it.
Whew. I think that works out really well, actually.
That's better than
Not
a
the
lot
call.
of options, but that's better than a lot of things that could have happened for sure.
Good job for the sweepers to get that by. That was tight. So here's the peel.
Yeah, too many yellows in there now at this point. Time to open things up and have access to that center.
Yeah, and the red's still fairly protected. It doesn't go out easily, so MacDougall may just want to force Pennell to the single.
That would certainly switch things up. It's been a number of ends now. You know, sometimes you want to just get a change of last rock or not last rock or whatever.
Make them do something.
Oh. Looks like it's a discussion of, well, what if we do this? Then what do they have?
Yeah. The peel's the easy call. You just open things up. Make it harder for the other team.
Timeout being called by Team MacDougall. I'm not sure they...
Timeout, yellow,
I
deep.
think so. I thought I saw. Thank you.
Yes, they did call timeout, yeah. Just making sure everybody knows in here. The blue's probably not going anywhere immediately. They could just put the guard back up. So
The
if
force
the guard,
isn't bad here at all.
yeah, and it's difficult because they know it's not truly a force. Kendall would have a draw for the second point to the full 4 foot. So that's, your risk that he won't make that.
If they throw in and try to freeze against the blue on the button, there'd just be a big explosion of rocks to follow, I think.
I think you could tap your own top 8 foot yellow, leave the shooter out front in the top 8, just congest things
Right.
with a bunch of yellow stones.
Yeah.
Don't really have to move the one on the button, but get your
No.
other yellow, the one that's currently top 4, into the button area. I think that might be useful.
That's a nice shot.
And a
That'd be
guard
nice.
is a good call here as well.
But that almost acts as your guard a little bit if it doesn't roll off too far.
Yeah, they're looking at playing weight, but I don't think you want to move that back 4 foot yellow rock right now. I think it's
No, I think that's helping.
it's helping keep the blue one in play, but it's also helping protect your yellows.
It's helping to protect the force, which is maybe what they're looking for. Because they're certainly not going to steal 2. Well,
Crazier things than
yes,
that.
I know. I'm not going to say any more.
We won't see a steal of 2 in the first end of this game.
No,
It's an
definitely
open
not.
hit.
Oh, dear. Decision has been made. They're throwing board weight based on the call that I see from Brent. Looking for a little wee tap here, I'm thinking. So this is Paul Dexter's first. Sweeper is working pretty hard on this, managing the line early on.
I'm playing the stone at the back. Just get it by. So that's where the shooter rolls. They're trying to free up that blue stone to be able to pop that out.
A lot of yellow rocks in play. That little blue rock is pretty lonely at this moment. Lonely and yet hard to get to.
So this play is just to hit that back stone, the
Trying to
shooter.
keep another one in play, I think, another blue in play at
Exactly,
this
and
point.
the
Hoping that they could get 2 at some
Yeah,
point.
the shooter will remain a catcher as well. It's actually, I think, distracting. Both teams seem content to stay away from that center. So that stone probably won't count, but it can help.
Certainly as the distractor, right? I mean, Brent is going
Brent's
after
playing.
it here. He's trying to think of how can I keep this open so I can draw in for 2.
And you can see every time a rock is hit on the nose, of course, the new rock is a little higher in the rings. So for Team MacDougall, the thinking here is probably, well, if we hit this here and then they hit, we'll have a double.
I think they're going to run out of rocks before they get that angle. Maybe not, though. They can throw some weight, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think the angle shows up after the next one.
Yeah.
Could almost catch the back of the blue right now, but Kendall's realizing you do have to roll a little bit here. Leaving this on the nose would not be ideal.
Even just to sit and plug that back hole, it looks like is an option that he's thinking of.
I almost feel like it's a good chance to move one of those yellows. I mean, Brent doesn't have a play to remove the blue right now. I don't think.
Also, if he rolls
Throw
right
a
into
ton
the
of
back
weight.
of the button there, and Brent comes down and sits on it, it makes it harder for the deuce.
Yeah, exactly. It's a really small scoring area.
Yes, yeah, really. Here we go.
So this is the soft weight hit and roll to the back button. They don't want to nose.
Sweepers are waiting, looking to try to make it curl now.
So it's currently on the nose. Just didn't get that line wherever the broom was. I don't know if Bryce set that a bit or was a little wide and it tracked. Rocks stay fairly straight there with any kind of weight, but Brent has the double here now. I think he's playing the out turn. These rocks are flat.
I'm just wondering.
Negative ice.
The out turn will give him the higher roll off the more action on the in, but a lower roll usually. No, change of plans. Yep. Team meeting on this one. This is a good end. Lots of chatter amongst the players regarding strategy and looking for a good outcome here from both teams. I think Brent may have been sort of accepting the force at one point, but sees an opportunity now. Still settling in on the hit after all. They did consider the tap on the two yellows, but it looks now like they're settling right in for probably the double, I think, would be the desired outcome.
Yeah, I mean, I think a chance to crowd the 4 foot with 4 yellows is pretty nice.
It is. All the pressure on the opponent that way. And away we go. Sweeper on this early. Trying to hold the line. This looks like it's moving.
So they did switch turns. They had the out turn originally. Can they get it? Can they move it?
They did.
Enough for shot.
That's pretty nice. Quite a crowd of rocks around that 4 foot area. Holy cow.
So 3 rocks to come, 2 blue, 1 yellow. So if you leave it as is, Brent just slashes his own yellow right into the blue.
That's right.
Sits 4, and the button rock would be pretty protected. You see why it was so important to have that roll on the blue stone on the last shot. Timeout's being called here.
Yep. Timeout for Team Kendall Thompson.
Timeout Delta.
Timeout Delta Blue.
This is a pretty important shot. I don't blame them for wanting their timeout at this point. It's a key end, I think. And there's an awful lot of yellow there. Getting harder and harder to score at this point.
Key end as we're getting down, and it's just such a lonely blue that if it's ever gone, I mean, and you don't score, you've given up a few. And they blanked the past 2 ends in order to try and generate points. I almost wonder.
What do you think?
I have lots of questions. Have you ever hammered that top yellow really hard on the high side, so on the outside?
Yeah. Would you double those out?
Does it? Yeah, so you'd lose the shot stone on the button, but with the raised stone, that middle sandwiched yellow stone, I think it would probably just roll over in front of the blue. I think that's what they're looking at now, actually.
I mean, at this point, I think he's almost...
You have to open the 4 foot.
He's got to do
yourself
something
the
to have a chance
score.
to not have the other team score. It's amazing how many different complications can occur in a curling game. You know, you would think after a while you'd have seen it all.
Nope. Because every single rock could be in
just a little different angle.
Slightly different spot, and you can wick a guard once, and yeah, it's always different.
looks like a conclusion has come, and I think they're doing what you thought, which is give that a big old bang.
Thought they'd probably play this on the other side. I think they're trying to hit the high side here, but if the rocks are close enough together, you get a bit of drag. So my concern is that it redirects this yellow, kind of chips off the yellow and might shoot the blue out sideways. It might not remove it because a lot of momentum will be taken out as the blue redirects off the yellow at the back. Anyway, it'll be seen. He's thrown it.
Yep. Waiting for some curl.
Oh, trying to get almost to nose. Okay.
That's a great result.
There you go. That's what I was thinking might happen. So I think that's the best result the team could ask for after looking at four yellows. Goodness. Two of them are gone.
Yeah.
And
the lonely blue has a friend.
Yeah, and it looks like blue's sitting 2. I wouldn't have necessarily thought blue could sit 2 out of this. So now Brent has to make a decision after probably feeling pretty good after his last.
Yeah, that's one of the things about curling. You throw a great shot and you're quite pleased with yourself until the next guy throws.
Well, the other guy does something and makes you feel silly. I've been there. You're looking at the double on the 2 blues. Hitting the shot stone and staying isn't really an option because there's a jam. You give up 3 that way. There's also a risk of a jam on the back yellow with this. But you have to throw. You have to try. You don't just play shots because the other one might be hard, or
no, that's
you have to try and make the shot. That's for sure. Hit this on the high side. Angle it into the back 4-foot stone. Should get both blues. Ooh, Brent had a little slip on his slide there. Stabilizer went sideways on him.
Little speed wobble.
He's over curling on this,
yeah.
But should get the 1.
Get the 1. That's it.
So blue remains shot, and it will be a draw for 2. Kind of came out of nowhere.
And he's got to get a little, pretty much full 8, little piece of the 4.
Interesting to take the intern side. I think playing it because he has a bit of backing there.
Yeah, I don't think we've seen a draw down this side yet.
A couple of the, they did play a couple around the guards, the high center guards, or halfway.
Oh, yes, you're right.
And the leads were making them, but this is a little wider out.
Yeah, he just needs a bite of that.
Bite 4.
Yeah.
Or come close.
Or come close, that's right.
A little better than full 8. This has to be for 2. 7th end.
And turn draw for 2. Sweepers are working on it. Line looks great.
Going hard for line now. This is grinding.
It is.
Can they get it by that top 8-foot stone?
There's no problem getting by, I don't think.
Nice
shot.
Right into the 4-foot. So that'll be good for the 2 points after blanking 5th and 6th ends. Making use of that hammer and picking up the 2. Very, very intense.
Yeah, I would never have guessed they would get 2 the way that had set up earlier. That was a great changer that Kendall threw on his first. And interestingly enough, on the other sheets, we had 2 timeouts on this sheet, and I saw 1 or 2 other timeouts on different sheets as well. So, as you mentioned before, the intensity of the 7th, 8th end kind of range is really kicking in.
Exactly, and I think it is, the 7th end is getting, we always used to talk about the 8th being the one, but the 7th is starting to be the one where things are happening, because the 8th is almost too late. If you don't force the other team in 9, you won't have hammer in 10.
That's right.
And with the 5 rock rule, there are fewer forces. There's more multiple points.
And the other thing I think that happens, I mean, I'm not sure, maybe these fellows would say differently, but suddenly by the 9th, 10th ends, your ice is wearing down a little bit, and so some of those finesse shots may not finish up just the way they would have in the 7th or 6th ends. You know, they might get a little fudgy at times.
Sweepers can't carry the rocks as far, yeah. Especially that slide path we talked about earlier flattens out.
So 7 looks like an ideal spot to score. I see Matthew Manuel scored in 7, making it 4-2 for Jamie Murphy on sheet E.
Yeah, he was down one. He gave up a big steal of 2. I think he was playing a gentle hit in the 6th to get 2 points, and I don't know if he tossed it wide or ran straight. Ended up jamming onto his own and giving up 2. He was shot.
Oh dear.
Or second shot, sorry.
Okay.
He was throwing for a hit for 2.
Yeah.
So they'll be disappointed. Manuel had a last rock, slightly heavy draw last night against Chad Stevens to drop there first. They're playing Jamie Murphy, who won against O'Leary last night. So top button still in there from Michael on his first.
And the corner guard, a long corner guard from Brent. I wonder if they'll choose to do a second one in behind it, or we'll have to wait and see. But certainly they're going to be anxious to score this end, I think, especially on the even.
Exactly, and down 2, be really important to score the couple points.
Yeah.
Get tied at least after 8.
And this strategy worked out really well for Kendall Thompson in the first couple of ends. So we'll see.
Play into the rings,
Yep.
no guards.
Yep.
Yeah.
See how that works out now.
They're 2 well-placed stones on that center line, so Brent's not going to ignore them. He's not going to put up another corner guard. He's actually making a play on those. He figures if he doesn't do it now, they may be covered.
Oh, that's really curling.
That looked like it grabbed.
Yeah, I think so.
We saw another one kind of coming up around the center line earlier in the game, too.
That's unfortunate. That nice little hit and roll sort of over towards that corner guard would have been ideal for Team MacDougall at this point. The center guard goes up now, really complicates it for them to try to get to, I think.
Yeah, just the one yellow in play, and it's a guard.
However, stranger things have happened. You don't know.
There was a 2 scored last end.
That's the benefit of playing those kinds of shots in practice and learning your angles and how things are going to roll and being able to predict those sort of outcomes.
Sometimes you can't.
I know, I'm going with they knew exactly what was going to happen.
Oh, man.
Sometimes
I'll
you
ask
think you
them
know.
after. Did you really think you were going to score? Were you just worried about scoring? They had a little bit of a gift when Brent missed the double there, and
But he
had
can
to
hit
make it
anything he
count.
likes now, so.
yes.
And that's
Yeah.
a very tight guard, so it opens up the run back quite easily, I think. Compared to the longer guard, at least.
Yeah, it's hard. The team without Hammer, they don't want to put up super long guards if they're not trying to steal. They're trying to force here, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So keep him play tighter to the rings. Keeping the rocks tighter together. Just watch this. 2 blues will stay, but look where that yellow rolled. Nicely tappable, splittable.
Yeah. That was a really good result, I think.
Guards can be hit now. And that yellow is a fairly dangerous rock. They're looking at talking about if we guard, they have a double to sit buried. So I think you can't, I agree, you can't ignore
That's
what's
nothing
out
but
there.
trouble I think from Kendall's point of view, having a guard
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
This is the benefit, like we talked about, of sitting back here and going,
Yeah.
well, gee, I really want to guard my shot stone, but there's people up there saying, oh, that's a really dangerous rock. Play the scoreboard a lot of the time, too. I don't want to high side this, though.
No,
Have
it's
to wait
a
for it to curl. There we go. I can probably try and roll that shooter in. Oh,
Not
just
quite
didn't
in,
spin.
but it's
So
there for a split later if they need it.
getting that flat ice a bit like you talked about.
Brent looking for the hit and roll, still trying to make use of that corner guard.
Yeah, as long as Team MacDougall can preserve their corner, it's a little high, but they're trying to actually make that big roll. Didn't quite get it. Came up too much. I think we're getting a bit of that eighth end here. The house is flattening out. You're not getting as much action off the rocks.
And
To
some of those
give it a
sweepers
little
are really
extra.
pounding down on those. I'd love to have the smart broom out there and get some numbers as to how much weight they're getting down on those brooms.
Yeah, it breaks down the pebble a little more when you're putting all your weight on it. So the hit here is open. For Team MacDougall, the good thing, though, is the corner guard is still there, still usable.
This will get in a nice little roll, I think. Oh, okay, let's say my angle wasn't great on that.
Didn't seem too panicked about that one.
No. Either way, they're still sitting one and not a lot to fetch up for Kendall Thompson. Some conversation here between the skip and the vice. Which one do you like better?
And so you see Brent's asking, if we draw around the tight one, they'll run it.
Yep.
We draw around the corner guard. See how he has his broom really high up? He's talking about 12 foot. That's because that guard's fairly high, so they can't be deep in the rings.
Right, because you can just come down and
be a
sit on
hit.
it or a hack weight hit or something. Yeah. Good conversation to have between the vice and the skip for sure.
I like this call, though. It keeps play around your guard. No in-off or raise on the blues.
Nicely by the guard. Now just is it the right weight? Will it finish? A little higher than called, but well buried. Even maybe came through on the other side a little bit.
Yeah.
I wonder if they'll be able to get to nose or if they're really looking to hit and roll away here. The roll away might work just as well for them.
Yeah, if you stick around, it creates backing.
It
You might
does.
want to, if they can get to the inside and roll big toward the center line, but they're sweeping just to make contact.
Yeah. Hit and
I'll
roll
get
away, I
it.
like that. Keeps it simple. Fewer yellows in the house means no score, that's for sure. From Thompson's point of view, for sure. So Brent's just asking Paul to make this a little bit better than the last one, a little less weight. Throw it to your sweepers, let them do some work. MacDougall is making use of both sweepers for some directional control here. This looks like a really good rock.
So this is that higher position that we were looking for on the first.
And there's the chance for a really good curler. You have the same shot to make twice. You make it better the second time.
Exactly. So what's available on that? I think it might be shot stone too.
It is,
That was
yeah.
a hard
Oh, it's
one
hard
to get shot.
It's really
Close.
close. It's really close.
That's what
They
we
can't-
say when we don't know. It's
That's
close.
Right. Yeah, exactly. They can't ignore it. They have to decide. I mean, I don't think the outside Well, the inside out is definitely not going to curl enough, I don't think, to tap it out of there.
No, the draw only curled that much.
Little tap back, maybe. Yeah.
Saw it come under and actually over curl with the heavier weight on Paul's first.
Yeah.
So that might be the best option that they're talking about. The run is so long.
It is. Oh, yeah. The run is really long.
And you're not at a point where you're desperate enough to play any kind of off your own. Freezing to it, if you can get shot, is okay as well. And if you freeze tap it and it taps it just enough that blue sits 2, it's a good result.
It is.
It's just hard to throw at a stone with any kind of weight that you can't see.
Right. And they're looking for a hit and roll here, I think. Little tap and roll, maybe?
Draw, tap, and roll. Slightly heavy draw. Wouldn't even call it a heavy draw. Heavy draw is like to the back house.
Yeah,
This is like T-line.
I think. Yeah, T-line would be really nice. Just a little sit there and...
So looking to sit 2 after this. We're seeing it break off the line, and we've seen them straighten out a little bit, but this one's continuing to curl.
I think they might kiss that guard.
It's a big ol' more than a kiss. It's full on.
Yeah.
Weight looked pretty appropriate.
It
just
did.
Judged on judging from how far the shooter rolled. So Brent can draw.
Just the 3 rocks remaining at this point.
If Kendall hadn't hit the guard so solidly and the guard stayed in place, it might be a chance for 3 here. But in this case, Brent just has to draw, sit the 1, not leave a double. Or sorry, sit the 2 if indeed that side one is counting.
And then if he's not sure, he can always hit that one on his last.
Yeah.
You know, if it's not quite clear to him.
Bravo, blue.
Yeah, it doesn't have much of it. Just has to play the draw. If he leaves
Absolutely.
a double, that's where he's going to get into trouble. And regardless of where this ends up, I think Kendall's playing a hit and roll to the center anyway to cut down the scoring chances. There's that stabilizer Brent didn't really like last end.
So I expect they're hoping this will come right around and have that, the rock that Kendall Thompson threw would be its guard. If they can get it to finish enough here. Weight looks maybe up.
Skipper's not talking about the weight so much. That just started curling like crazy. Hard pressed to get that by, and they did not. Will it leave a double on the yellows? What happened to that? Just took off all of a sudden. The sweepers were saying it was heavy.
Yeah, the weight looked, I mean, with the tick and where it rolled, it would have been T-line or maybe a little deeper, but it really, really cut in.
So they didn't talk about... There's another option here. But you'd have to make it if Kendall were to draw. Leave a double on the blues. Chance to steal, but playing the hit here. This is a safe call.
This is the safer one for sure.
If you miss this, you give up max 2. So you have to remove one of the stones, of course.
Yeah.
This is the raised stone, though. The high
it
yellow has to
stays,
roll
yeah.
really far
Yeah.
across the sheet, so it's not a gimme. This is hanging wide.
Ooh.
Doesn't make contact, almost made contact with the second one, but does not.
The question will become now, which is shot, the blue or the yellow?
I think they think it's yellow.
I think they do.
Draw for 2.
I'm surprised they're not. How much ice did he have for his last draw that kissed on the guard?
Similar to this, but the guard's
Moved
moved over
a
a
little
bit.
bit. just saying there's no sense in flirting with the guard. You just need, you just need to beat that other blue. So Brent MacDougall's throwing his last here, looking for a draw in for 2. Really just needs to make sure he's touching the 8-foot.
And this will tie things up after 8 if Brent's successful. He needs to bite the 8-foot.
Sweepers are giving it a go.
He was heavy on his first, but it took off and ticked a guard. Now they're just sweeping to get it there. And it won't be. So wait for confirmation, but we think it's just a single. Otherwise, he would have been hitting that side one.
Yep. 1 yellow. Score of 5-4 after 8.
And do we have any other 8th ends? No, we're finishing up the 8th. All of the other games going on. A reminder that if you are watching the Scotties as well, in addition to the Deloitte Tankard, the Dartmouth Curling Club is hosting the Scotties Tournament of Hearts, the Provincial Women's Curling Championships. The 2 o'clock draw. We'll have all 8 teams out on the ice here. We'll have coverage for you. If your team's playing on sheet C or D, you get to watch live. And that'll be true of all the games through the week. Scotties champions will go to Moose Jaw February 15th.
That'll be cold.
Yeah, we shouldn't complain about the weather here.
Oh no, it's -10.
But I forgot my gloves, Pam. My hands are really cold. I feel like in Moose Jaw I would never forget gloves.
I always keep a spare pair in the car. They're my car gloves. That way I never forget. So our U21 juniors are playing out in Langley, BC this week, and there's streamed action there as well through Curling Canada. Both the men's and women's teams are doing fairly well out there, and lots of good curling to watch, good commentary as well. It's been a nice
Nothing
week
like
out
us,
there.
though.
No, nowhere near
No.
the quality that we have here today.
You're welcome, everybody. So a bit of a sigh of relief for this Thompson team. After only giving up the single, looking like they were giving up 2 there in the last. And for Team MacDougall, they'll be disappointed, but just regroup. They'll have to steal here or force and get their 2 and 10. But that first stone coming into the rings, disappointing. Says it could be hit. Michael's shooter rolls out, though.
And we do have a final score for you on sheet C. It looks like Stuart Thompson has come out on top over Gibson. After the 7th, it was 9-4. So I'm thinking that Thompson must have stolen in the 8th end as well. This looks a little more like a guard. I think they'll be hoping to keep this out in front of the rings, trying to generate a steal. Probably early on would be a nice goal. And Thompson looking to come around again, as has been his tendency throughout this game. Now, if you were Brent, would you like to be tied without or down with?
Oh, man, that's always the question. So I'm really curious to see what happens with the stat. We get more and more numbers with the 5-rock rule.
Right, because it's a whole different thing.
Traditionally, 4-rock rule, you always want to go home down 1 with have the hammer, and you have a really good chance at scoring 2.
Yep. 5-rock
Nowadays, it's back and forth. It really depends. It's totally doable. 3.
Yeah.
And maybe you want to go home down 2, but I think people are getting better at stealing with the 5-rock rule.
You get some guards in play and
Yeah,
make the
making it
most of
really
it.
hard for the team with hammer. Mostly in that last end, though. They're not trying as hard to steal earlier, so you're
Right.
still seeing more multiple points with hammer early. Last end makes a difference.
So Brophy's rock just slid a little deep there, opening the door a little bit for Brent MacDougall to come in and sit shot and a little bit protected.
I don't know. I think if I actually want to answer your question,
Okay.
lately I've been wanting to come home, given the option,
Yes.
tied without.
Tied without.
And I know that sounds crazy.
I would want that. Well,
I'd rather come home up 1 or up 2 without.
up four.
but-
Up four would be my
yeah,
preference, actually.
like if I got to pick, but if you're giving me the option of, in this case, Brent can theoretically force or steal, because force and steals look very similar from the outset.
Yes. So this is not a surprise with the staggered doubles out in front, or staggered guard out in front. Time to hit and clean things up. It's curling early.
Oof, way over curled. Might not. So they just got the second one, clipped it over.
Left a corner in play, but that's
It's not how they were playing that shot.
no, it wasn't. It
It
really,
was a high sider.
really went quickly. I think the other change with Five Rock rule, if you were up a couple of points, you'd throw through in a hurt as the last end was coming to conclusion. But it becomes, unless you're up by 4, it becomes a risk now.
Yeah.
Where the
Things are
3
changed.
is,
Things are changing.
so easy, or not easy, but still more easy than they used to be. And it's interesting because the variety of shots, that the players play has changed with the Five Rock rule as well. Your second always used to be your hit man. You wanted somebody that could biff a couple
now
of
they
numbers.
have-
They've got a draw and a hit almost every time.
Yeah.
Or, there's a
It's
lot more
often-
finesse required in that shot making now. So your ability to specialize is reduced. I think you still get it with your lead. Somebody who can throw those 2 lead stones right where you need them it's a focal point of the game at this point, I think.
We always tell new curlers how important those front end stones are, because new curlers always feel like they get stuck at lead. Oh, I'm no good, I'm lead. And meanwhile, I'm like, if I'm going to hide somebody.
I don't know where you
I threw second once, and I would argue that I was struggling the most with my throwing, and I sure as hell threw second.
Yeah.
But it was with the 4 rock rule, and there were more hits, and I was throwing the weight nicely. It was just I didn't have the finesse, and can't hide players anymore. Maybe you have someone who struggles with hitting, and so that's they're really good at draws, and they end up at lead. But there's these tick shots and these taps now that are so precise, and really every position has to be able to do everything.
Yes. Yeah. It's.
There's just usually the difference is there's more rocks around usually when the back end players are throwing.
And I mean, that only enhances the importance of the sweepers and the communication. And yeah, I think it's a really good change, especially since the rocks and the ice surfaces have improved and have become more reliable. The 4 rock was getting fairly, I don't want to say boring, but certainly
Predictable?
at the elite level, it was highly predictable.
Yes,
Yeah.
that is certainly the driving factor. So here, there's no guards. Open freeze there from Paul. Just a little bump on the blue, but it's available for a hit.
And I suspect Kendall likes this open end. If he could come home having gotten a blank, one with, that would be probably a fairly desirable position. given the amount of blanks that he's had.
Yeah.
You know, the success at the defensive game has been really good.
He loses the back blue. They won't be too upset about that. It's actually good
That's
to
right on the
not get forced that way. So that blue stone is covering the pin. If Brent were to freeze, he would not be shot. So he's electing to play the hit. I don't know. I like the freeze too. I think the freeze gives you much better to force. And you'll have two shots
yeah.
at it.
Yeah. Now it is later in the end. We're at Brent's first here. I think it's a little bit of defense at this point. If he comes up a little short on the freezer, it's not perfect. Then all of a sudden it opens up a 2.
Maybe he wants to go home down 1 without. Or he's resigned to that.
Well, I think when his first one on his lead rock went into the rings, it kind of
It does set the tone
set
for the
tone.
end, yeah.
It sure did.
And it's so frustrating. You're so close to perfect guard, and then just a foot.
Yeah.
Foot of difference.
A foot of difference and everybody's shoulders drop. Oh.
Straightforward hit here.
Yep.
As we'll see, I think, for the rest of the end. The 3 remaining shots.
Unless something unexpected happens, I think it will be a clean house and looking for the blank. I see the 8th end was completed on the Manuel Murphy game, and it looks like a 3-4 for Murphy over Manuel.
Yeah, steal of 1 for Manuel in the 8th.
Which is big. It's good to...
Murphy looking good for a multiple score here, though, in
Sure does.
9. Sitting 2. We mentioned the Thompson, the other Thompson, Stuart Thompson, Andrew Gibson game that's completed. Stuart Thompson moving to 2-0. Gibson now 1-1. And we're in 9 on the O'Leary Stevens game. Stevens is up 7-3. Sitting 2 and throwing. That one may end.
I would think unless O'Leary gets multiples on this end, it might be handshakes. But you never know.
We'll keep you updated.
And this looks like a nice clean hit, right to the nose.
Good shot from Brent there. So the peel here. Roll the shooter out, go home with hammer. That's the plan.
Home with hammer up 1. I like that.
Good pick.
If you could pick.
Sometimes the other team tries really hard to not let you do what you want.
Exactly.
So this center line, this is a spot that does curl a lot.
Is curling.
Trying to keep it straight.
Nice
Well
little
done.
roll out.
So that should be it for blanks this game. Blank in 5, 6, and 9. Score remains 5-4. Thompson leading MacDougall with hammer. And we'll come throwing in the same order as in the last end. MacDougall will be up first. Kirk McDermott. Here.
Both teams are having a little pre-end review, reminding each other of the important things.
So what do you think Team MacDougall is planning?
Lot, don't you think?
Think they'll play tight and then long? Long and then tight? That's their only 2 options.
Yeah. I don't know. I'd go long and then tight. If you play it tight and long, would Kendall Thompson not try the tick on the first? I've not seen him play this year.
I don't know that they play the tick all that often. The discussion Thompson team would have been having is to leave a shot on the last for Kendall. So keep the play open.
Yeah, 2 very contrasting strategies about to unfold. That's right. And I see Brent's going for the curlier side.
The other thing, too, when a team is down or sorry, is up 1 without. And they have to play it as if it was a steal or a force, because a force is an extra end. The play is different. You still have to guard against a multiple score. When you are down without hammer, you go all out for the steal.
Yes.
Because it doesn't matter how many points the other team gets.
No,
They're
that's
winning
right.
if there's no score.
Exactly.
So it turns, this kind of game, or this type of end, turns out much more like a mixed doubles. Something where you just go all out to try and get as many points or as many rocks in. Because you don't care. The other
No, that's right. Oh, looks like we have another finished game. O'Leary versus Stevens. I'm thinking Stevens came out on top, although I don't see a score on the board just yet.
We'll call it. Stevens at 2-0 now. O'Leary 0-2. Through 2 draws. They'll be back at 7 tonight. This is a tick shot.
Even with the long one here, we're trying the tick.
The long one sometimes is the safer one to play the tick on, too. It's a little too much. That yellow will go right through. That's why it didn't curl. The long one sometimes is easier to play the tick on because you can hit the further and
Right.
without
More
it going
safety.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it just goes back up. The blue comes off. Try not to hit each other.
I see them laughing about
Curling
it
is
there.
a non-contact reminder.
Although you contact the ice once in a while, as we saw a tumble earlier from a sweeper.
Someone else slipped, I think, in practice. I heard someone behind the glass saying it was looking a little greasy.
Well, the ice was running very quick earlier, so it would be pretty slick out there. You'd want to make sure your grippers were fresh.
I have to throw a timer on one of these and see how things have changed. And do we have a score posted in the Manuel Murphy game? I was getting ready to say Murphy was looking good for a multiple score. They only got a single there in 9, so they lead 5. Manuel down 2 with hammer, playing 10.
It's interesting. Thompson is changing his strategy in this end rather than playing the come around as he did in all the other ends.
And I think that's the same reason about the situation. MacDougall is going to try and steal. They have to. They don't win if they don't steal. Or they don't continue playing if they don't steal. And for Thompson, just need to have a shot. So keeping it open is ideal.
Critical.
And they wicked it.
Little tick out of the center line there. It helps. Shooter rolls out, just barely. But I suspect they don't want a lot of rocks in play anyway.
No, and we'll see the peel coming up after this. So
They'll be quite anxious to play that peel, I think.
So this is when you talk about the seconds having to make those critical finesse shots. The draw doesn't feel super finesse, but it is extremely critical at this point.
Don't overcook it, guys.
This is the potential steal point.
This is the curly side. If they bury this, it would be great.
I was timing that and forgot to stop my watch, so that was running about a 25.5 hog to stop if you use that method. I don't. I time hog to hog. I remember. I was too invested in the curl. So they got that biting the 8-foot.
That's a good spot. I wonder if he can get enough of this to clip the shot rock out.
Yeah, so they're ignoring the high guard. Trying to clip that other yellow.
Oh, really
Just
close.
missed.
Yeah.
So you see the high guard, even though the tick on Michael's second didn't move the yellow over very far, the button is going to be, in all likelihood, open on last shot. And so MacDougall's forced to play over on that same side, the intern side.
And now, of course, it's open season on the guards, so it changes the flavor of things as well.
I'm going to use that phrase, open season on the cards. Just have at 'em. So getting a nice time there, 15 and a half. Hug to hog on that and makes the draw. So
And they likely could have swept that, I would think, into the 4-foot easy.
I think they were looking for a tight guard.
For sure. I don't think they wanted it even maybe that deep, eh?
Yeah. The guard's still in the way, and those are not great steal chances. So I like the peel here. I know Kendall's looking at, we can access them, but the peel is looking pretty helpful. The other thing I look at when you're in a case like this is, what does the other team really not want me to do?
Right.
So you play on the ones in the rings. They just make the draw better. In this case, they have to guard or make a play into the rings, and then the stones are grouped.
And he's looking to set up. He wants there to be very few complications for his last shots. I heard that, skips really like open draws, and they don't really like to have to play the run-back double. So getting rid of this, I think, is a great move.
Yeah, I think that is a very good way to put.
Leave those run-backs to the
they'll
thirds.
play them if they have to, but
something went
if you
wrong.
could pick.
Yes, if you could pick.
Yeah.
Something went wrong if your skip is playing a run-back double. Or something went very
None of
right
us
for
have
the other team.
ever been there, right?
No, never. Those shots where a skip is out there shaking his head thinking, oh my God, I have nothing left. It's just a good luck.
What can I throw?
Yeah.
What is my Hail Mary?
Yes, a Hail Mary, exactly. Looking for the well-placed guard here to try to preserve those. Looks like it may overcurl a little. I think a nose hit gets both of these. That would, although the center guard would remain, that would simplify things, I think.
And this is an even harder one to play the peel on than the first. Peel is still an option though, but they're going for the ones in the rings. Play it tight. Rip the front if you're tight.
Yes, exactly. If you're a little inside, you still get a good result. You don't want to be wide, though. This looks pretty good.
Got it by. Makes the double.
And shooter
Blue
sticking
rolls
around.
open.
It's nice.
So high guard. The other reason why you'd want to hit the ones in the rings instead of the guard is the guard's high.
It is. You can curl around that.
So there's a raise on the blue, and Brent's recognizing that, calling another guard here. And again, if they were going for the force or anything else, you might see a different selection of shots here. This is really being dictated by the fact that MacDougall's down one without to steal. They don't care how many blues are in the rings. I mean, if the blues are lined up directly on the shot stone, yeah, they care. But
Yeah.
otherwise, the number of blues in the rings don't matter like it would if the score were different.
This looks a tad heavier than what I think he was looking more for the buried guard than the buried one in the house. Line was great, just a couple feet heavier than where the broom was placed, at least.
Ended up
Do you
being
like
a
the
pretty
peel?
good draw.
Yeah.
Yeah, play it tight, play the hit, but peel, you got to play enough weight. I think they're playing a control weight here. That if you do tick the guard, it actually moves it.
Mm-hmm. I've seen a couple here. This one looks like it's hanging nicely, though.
Really starting to bend now. They might be able to roll the shooter.
Lovely
Could have hit
shot.
that a little thinner and rolled the shooter, but got a slight overlap in those blues. If Brent can place his draw, actually, we'll get a timeout here so MacDougall can confer. Bring out the coach. They don't have one.
I mean, he was looking at the hit, but they just played that hit. Unless he gets the roll, there's no... It doesn't help much, I don't think.
I think that blue being there is actually really helping them, and if you can put a yellow behind the guard, top 4 foot, and block, like have the raise prevented by the fact that those blues are so close together.
Yep.
Make your opponent make a hard shot.
Yeah, it'd be really hard to hit that blue in the right spot without rubbing off on the other one. I think that's a good shot. That would be my shot. I agree with you.
So the closer they put this behind those blues, the easier a raise on the blues is. It's like to have an angle on the blues for the raise is more difficult. So
Yes,
leaving
than the direct.
the stone. Yeah. Top 4 foot behind the guard. Not underneath the blues.
Although with the hack weight it might be tappable out. But you can't stop everything. I think that's the call.
Yeah, it's funny. They talked about hitting those blues, and I really think it does go back to. Doesn't matter. You don't worry about those
No,
blues. And it really reminds me. A end like this just reminds me of mixed doubles play, where you can't remove your opponent's stone, so you just play into the rings, try and get your stone in a better position than them, and in a place it can't be removed later.
Brent seemed to be giving it a sober side. He got down into the hack. No urgency from the sweepers. They seem to like it so far. That's really holding out there a long time.
Yeah, it does take a nice finish at the end, but the
Might be a
hasn't
little
taken
heavy.
as much as we expected. Bryce is there to help guide it to the back of the rings. Yeah, so that's a back line weight.
Yeah, that's a third shot, I would say. It did come in, though, eh? It's right into center. So it curled in as they expected, just a little bit heavy.
Guys, I would probably peel that guard.
Yeah.
Seem to talk about a lot of stuff in the rings, but
Yeah.
I like this one.
Get rid of that and give your skip a chance at a nice, easy last shot. If there ever was such a thing.
To do this, Brent has to draw around those blue stones to the back 4 foot, and there still would be a raise, likely.
And they're tight to the 4 foot, so it may even could be a bit of a hit available as well. Just peel well done. Looks like Brent is taking the same ice as last time. I expect he's hoping to throw a little less weight and make Kendall have a tough last shot.
And Brent just threw in the same path, or a little wider out actually, so it's a bit tighter. This one might fudge a bit. I'm gonna guess he could get away with the same weight. It might be fine.
Mm-hmm.
So this is Brent MacDougall's last rock here. Trying to draw around those top house blue stones. Ideally, he can get this in the buried. Waiting for the curl, though. They're going for weight now.
This looks good. Just gotta
Need to
it
get
a
shot.
little further.
So got shot stone out of it. But what is visible? Enough to hit, that's for sure. Pretty tight ice here, so this will be
Some good weight
a
plate, I think.
missile-ish. One rock to come in the Emmanuel Murphy game as well. Doesn't look fun.
Speaking of missiles.
Angle run.
Yeah.
And in our game, so this is a pick for the win.
Oh, field goal there through the angle run. Murphy has the win. And a nice little pick here.
So Murphy to take that to 2-0, Manuel 0-2. Team Kendall Thompson moves to 1-1, MacDougall 0-2. Men's draws this evening at 7 p.m. We'll have coverage for you on sheets C and D. Of course, the Scotties Tournament of Hearts being held alongside the Deloitte Tankard. The Scotties will have a game for you at 2 o'clock, so tune in on sheets C and D. Watch NS Curl for the scores. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in.
And thanks,
Pam
Selena.
Sullivan.
It was good fun.
Yes, had a blast. We'll catch you guys later.
Sounds good.
The way I had the earphones on, it was pinching against my glasses arm. And yeah.
Great job, ladies.
Oh, thanks. Were you listening?